Do you like podcasting?
Yeah, it's all good. We have a show as well called Keeping It Real Estate. So
Mhm.
if the value is great and the conversation is enriching, I do. If it's not, then not so much.
How is your show going?
It's going pretty good actually. We're almost to episode 100. We're at like 98 or
Oh,
so. So it's good. We've got some great guests on, and it's, I hope, added significant value to
mm.
our listeners. But I know we've received some great value just by being able to interview some of these folks.
What do you like the most as a podcast host?
For me, I like to meet the people and be able to talk to them for 45 minutes to an hour about what's going on in their life. And I'm a full committed conversation, and it allows me
Mm.
to dive in deeper to conversations with people that you normally wouldn't have.
That's true. I love long form conversations, especially, for example, Joe Rogan or Lex Friedman. And I try to mimic their style with my podcast. So we pretty much don't have a time limit. How much time do you have today for this episode?
Yeah, my calendar said 8:30 to 10:30.
Super,
So
super.
I
Then
have till
we're
10:30.
super. Then we are not in a hurry. That's great.
Yeah.
Dan, it's good to have you on the show. In the last days, I've been following your career from the past, from the beginning up to now, and I'm extremely impressed. Can you tell the guests a little bit about yourself, about what you do currently, and then we dive into what probably takes a little bit longer in your snowboarding career?
Yeah, you bet. Well, thanks again for having me on, and I appreciate you doing a little research on me, and I appreciate the compliment. Yeah, now we are multifamily investors. So we're buying apartments located in Dallas and Fort Worth, that market, and Nashville, Tennessee. And it's all on a 3 to 7 year hold period. We're buying for cash flow, creating multiple streams of income for our investors. And it has a value add play component to it, where we will come in with maybe $10,000 to $15,000 per door, and we'll upgrade the property and improve the property and help it perform at a better, higher level for the residents who live there.
That's cool. How is the real estate market in Dallas and Nashville these days?
Yeah, the market is very dependent on what kind of debt the buyer put in place back in 2021 and in 2020. So if you put in fixed debt with low leverage, you are loving the real estate environment right now, because inflation has helped rents move up significantly. Yes, your expenses have increased, of course, but rents have moved up more. And if your debt is fixed, now you have more cash flow. And you may have some value compression. The value may have come down due to cap rates rising, but if your goal is passive income and your goal is cash flow for your investors or for your deals, you're enjoying it. You know, every month you're getting extra money to push out to investors, and they're along for the ride. And when the market shifts, you'll be in a great position to capitalize on an exit.
And I think the great thing with real estate is you don't see the depreciation of the value right away. It's different than the public equity markets. So fixed interest rates, those who were lucky to lock it in, and increasing cash flows with inflation must be a great ride for investors. It looks like you have pretty much the same discussion that we have here in Europe, that those on the other side who didn't lock into fixed interest rates have a hard time. How is the variable side of life in your area in Dallas and Nashville?
Yeah, say that one more time, so I follow the question.
How do the real investors do who didn't lock their interest rate at a fixed rate,
Yeah.
but went along with the ride and said interest rates have always been going down in the last 10 years, so why should they change? How is life for those kind
Yeah,
of folks?
for the deals that do not have fixed debt, it depends a little bit on if they put a rate cap in place, and a rate cap would cap your interest rate. If they put one of those in for a long enough period of time and it wasn't a large gap, they may be fine. But for the folks that didn't do that or don't have compressed rate cap, they're in a challenging situation, a very challenging environment where they are looking to potentially sell because they're losing money every month. Every month they're bleeding cash to keep the property afloat, or their lender is not going to allow them to extend their loan term and their loans coming due. So in those scenarios, you have people who are somewhat desperate to exit deals.
How do you expect the development of the interest rates in the coming 12 months? I mean, the elections are coming next year. What's your expectation towards interest rates?
That's a tough one. The best I can give is
just crystal ball guessing. It's
yeah. Based off history, I would think you'd have about a 6 to 7 month period, maybe 8 months of pausing from the last hike, and then rates coming down. How far they come down, I don't know, but you would think they're based off of history, based off of cycles, there would be some sort of ease in rates, which would then be the time to exit your deals if you needed to exit deals.
So you expect we already saw the peak of the interest rate hikes on the market in the US?
I do believe we are close, if not at the peak now, of what they'll do based off of the data that's coming out and the information that we're seeing come, out. That, yeah, I think we're very close, if not topped, and it will be held here for a while to confirm that until we probably see some more damage in the economy.
Now, hopefully we don't see more damage in the economy than we already saw.
Yeah, that's probably unlikely, but I hope you're
Yeah, in Europe, I mean, I'm in Austria, in Vienna, and we still have an inflation rate of about 7 to 8%.
Oh.
Yeah, so the interest rate changes didn't change much because the root cause of inflation here in Europe, in my opinion, are the surging energy prices. And this is solely driven by the war between Russia and Ukraine. And as long as that doesn't change, we will see rising prices. The measures of the ECB, I don't think they do much here in Austria. We are mostly dependent on Russian natural gas. So
wow, that's so interesting to hear that inflation is still at 7 to 8%. What has it been at the last few years there?
Before the pandemic, I think almost all over Europe, the inflation rate was pretty stable, about 1 to 2%. It's up to 2020. And this was a period that I think it was the first time in the European history that Europe saw a decade of stability, peace on one hand, stable prices, and a growing economy. And I think everything changed in March 2020 with the first lockdowns and shutdowns, and which led to the destruction of value chains. And I think this brought this development in motion that the first hits on the inflation rate were probably the value chains, the disruption with the prices. The ECB started after the Fed to raise the interest rates, which should have brought the inflation down very quickly after the lockdowns were over. But unfortunately, February 2022 happened with the start of the war in the Ukraine. And the countries that are close to Russia in Europe signed off, I think 5-6 years ago, deals with Russia. Russia provides natural gas at a very low price, and this fueled the economy in half of Europe, in my opinion. Low natural gas, Europe could compete on the energy side with other regions like the United States or Southeast Asia. And February was a hard hit, so unfortunately.
Yeah, what a perfect environment for creating inflation. Let's shut down the production and transportation, and let's create more currency than ever before in our history of time. So you have those two things hit, and now you're dealing with the effects of what was done.
Yeah, what I wonder, I mean, if this continues, I think the prices of the houses that you invest in should go up again. I think the valuation. So this should probably fuel more the valuation of the houses than destroy it.
Yeah, I mean, when you get into, if you follow Ray Dalio, he talks a little bit about, a lot actually, about the stages of debt cycles, and we're in late stage 5 of the debt cycle here in the US. And when you're in late stage 5, you're seeing all of the signs like clear as day. It's apparent we're there. Usually in those moments, you want to be owning things that are real, real estate, gold, silver, farms, timber, anything that's real will hold value and hedge inflation much better than things that are fake. So that's really the goal for us, is can you buy something that you believe will have increase in value significantly, and can you get a control on your expenses to create that residual multiple streams of income every month, whether you work or don't work.
That's true. That's true. Then let's step into real estate investing a little bit later in the conversation, and now make a detour to the beginning of your career. You are not a born real estate investor, so you didn't grow up with buying houses. At least what the internet says. The majority of posts and pages I found about you were snowboarding. What brought you into snowboarding?
Yeah, I grew up in central Minnesota in a pretty flat area of the country, but very cold and had a lot of snow. There were hills, but there were no mountains. And when I was about 11 or 12 years old, my cousin got a snowboard brought from California to Minnesota, and that changed my life. In that moment, I really just had a lot of fun riding, and it was a passion. So as much as I possibly could, I would be asking my parents to take me to the local hill. And it was just purely out of fun at the time. I wasn't trying to be a professional snowboarder. I just really loved to do it. And I kept doing that for 3-4 years and got around a bunch of kids in school and middle school and high school who were also very into it. And it was just what we did. It was our way of having a fun time. Instead of playing hockey, we were snowboarding. And one thing led to another, and all of a sudden, by the time I was about 14, 15, 16 years old, I started to hear about professional snowboarders, and I started to see these videos of pro snowboarders that were filmed all over the world. A lot of it actually in Austria, Switzerland, a lot here in Colorado and in Utah and in Whistler and in British Columbia and Alaska. And all of that started to kind of open up my eyes that there was a possibility of getting paid as a snowboarder. And as time went on, the part I find interesting with any athletic career is you don't, most of the time in the first 3 to 6 months or even year, have a goal of being a professional with that. It comes over time. And as you put in the work and as you do it and go further down the path, the desire grows and the belief and the confidence grows, and you start to adjust what your focus is. So that's really how it was for me. It came into my life, and it was just the most fun thing I found to do. 3, 4, 5 years later, as I started to get better and better and go to contests and actually place, I started to believe it was possible. And by the time I was 16, I pretty much made a decision I was going to do my best and chase this career of trying to become a professional snowboarder. So that was really the way it came.
That's great. That's great to hear. What was the turning point? I would like to learn a little bit more about this switch that flipped, where you said, I don't do it as a hobby or in my spare time. I really want to make this for a living. I mean, I grew up in Austria. As I said, a lot of these videos have been shot in Austria, some of those by Red Bull. And I grew up with skiing, not snowboarding. So I'm close to 50, and snowboarding was not very popular in the 70s and 80s of the last century. And it is fun. Skiing is fun. Snow is fun. But every time when I addressed this topic of doing it for a living with my parents, they said, no, go to school. You can't make a living with that. What flipped the switch in your life that you said, this is the way, this is the route I want to go? What was this event?
Yeah, there was a pretty distinct moment where I was working. I had a handrail. A lot of the snowboarding we did was urban in Minnesota, meaning it was handrails and wall rides and roof gaps. And if you don't know what that is, you're going to have to just Google my name and throw in X Games and you'll see what I'm talking about. But I was working on building a handrail down the hill at my house. My parents lived on a piece of land that was 2 acres, and there was a hill from the top of our house down to the lake. And in midway down, there was a set of 15 stairs that my dad built, wood stairs, and I built a handrail. And there was a time when I was building that handrail where I still remember walking down to the hill where I decided I'm going to do everything possible. Everything I do is going to be 100% committed towards this goal. And I think the thing that changed was my belief that it was possible and my desire. And something, whatever it was at that time, moment in time, there was enough belief that it was possible and enough of a burning desire where I was going to do whatever it would take for as long as it would take to make it become a reality. And that would be the best answer I have, is there was a moment in time where belief and desire mixed to say, I'm certain it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
When you look at your pro life, how is it? Can you describe a day in the life of a professional snowboarder? I mean, just to give you the background of the question, first, when I think of snowboarding, you always see the cool guys and the cool ladies who have a great lifestyle, snowboarding, having fun. They're always laughing and probably partying throughout day and night and just enjoying incredibly rides. When I Googled your name, I saw videos on YouTube where you jumped down mountains basically, or jumped down what looked like a cannon. I can show it later then. How is the reality of a professional snowboarder? Is it all party, or is it more on the hard work side of life?
Yeah, it would depend on who you're talking to in that phase in their career. For me, it was, I mean, if I was at home, I would get up and have some breakfast. I'd go to the hill and I'd ride until about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I'd come home, watch a snowboarding video, get ready to probably go film something at night, and we'd go out and film until about 10 or 11, maybe midnight, and get up and do it all over again. If I was traveling, let's say we were taking a trip to Austria, we'd plan a 2-week trip. We'd fly in, meet a bunch of locals. Most of the time when we were filming in Europe, we were filming with a European local set of folks, and we would travel with them, and they would kind of take us around to different parts of the country, and we would set up shop on different local resorts, and we would just hike, and we would get after whatever we could find when we were there. And that would be more of a every day we are on the same program. We're going up into the mountains, we're looking for a feature, and we're filming. And after those 2 weeks, you'd fly home, and you may have a week or 10 days at home, and then maybe you'd have a contest to go to. You'd head out to the contest and do your few days there, and then you maybe fly to Japan and you'd film some powder depending on the time of the year. And so it really was that. It was constantly working with the brands that you rode for. So you sign contracts with companies like, for example, Volcom. Volcom is a major skate, snow, surf brand, and they have a team, and they're going to help you create your schedule and put you in the best chances to be able to create footage and content that will be able to show what you would like, how you want to be represented on a snowboard. And that's just it, year after year. And yes, there is a fair amount of partying by some folk, no doubt about that. For me, that wasn't really where I was at. I was just grateful and wanted to be there. So I didn't want to look back with regret and say, man, I really wish I would have pushed it. And, I really wish I would have tried harder. I don't have any of those regrets. When I was in the game, I worked as hard as I possibly could. In fact, Snowboarder magazine wrote I was considered one of the hardest, if not the hardest working man in snowboarding, which was kind of cool. So that's just the name. Yeah, there was a lot of partying, but it wasn't what I was doing.
Yeah, I have to show this, I guess. Since we are in Austria, give me a second to find the share screen option. Here it is. Red Bull featured you on their website. And I think it's snowboarding. Dan Brisse, backcountry, pipe, park rails. These riders have it all. Was an article from 2016. And these pictures look amazing.
So, yeah, that's Whistler right there. That's the backcountry of Whistler. We built a jump that you can see. You can't see just the lip of it. Yep.
This picture is just incredible.
That's the backcountry in Utah, Salt Lake City area. That was the year I think I was filming for Pirates, which is a company, there you go, overseas, and Absinthe Films, very heavily Europe-based companies.
Let's scroll down. This one is, I think it's funny. You have the photographer, film team, below you. It looks like you jump over him.
Yeah, oh, that trick right there, what's going on there is I was riding up the tree and doing a flip off of the tree is what's happening there.
So you went up here
Yeah, correct.
and did the flip back then.
Yeah, off the tree.
How does it feel? How does it feel? What do you think when you do these tricks? What's going on inside you?
Yeah, what's going on inside? It depends on if it's your first time. If it's your first time, you're probably quite scared and nervous about what's going to happen. And if you've been trying a bunch of times, you're probably upset you haven't got it. So it just depends on where you are in getting the trick and how quickly it came. If it's something you do over and over and over again and it's easy, it's just fun, you know, or like this is going to work. A lot of times when we were filming in the streets in an urban setting, you're hitting a feature you've never practiced before on in your life. So you're trying to apply what you've done at the resort and bring it to an urban feature. And a lot of times there, when you've never done it before and you've never hit a feature like that, and you're hitting something that is going to be kind of the top tier of your skill level, you may try 30, 50, 80 times, or even have to come back another day and you'll take a serious beating potentially. But that's just the way it works.
It's interesting when I saw the pictures of this urban snowboarding before your PR team reached out to me. I was not aware that it even exists. It looks like free running. So this is something that I can connect with my experience, and it's dangerous basically. So it's this is nothing I think anybody can do without proper training. How do you build this skill when you said you fly to a new location and you see the setting for the first time in your life? Are you jumping right in and say, I can do this and I write this and do it one time and it works perfectly? Or is there some training phase that you need to go through?
Yeah, you're going to start small. You're going to start with what's right in front of you. So, you know, if you've never snowboarded before, you're not going to go try to hit a handrail. You're first going to try to just get down the hill. Once you comfortably are able to get down the hill, now you let's say you've ridden for a few weeks, you're kind of getting bored of just riding. Now you might want to hit a jump. Now you're comfortable and ready to hit a small jump. You're not going to start with a 100-foot jump. You're going to start with a 5 or 10-foot jump and try to see what that feels like to be in the air. And you're going to go through that process over and over again as you continually scale up on everything. And what you're seeing there, the pictures you're seeing were pictures and things that were created only after riding for 10 or 12 years every day. So there was a decade of experience and obsession going in before hitting features like jumping a building. Like if you jump that building right there, that feature right there, if anything would have happened and I didn't make it, I would be dead. Obviously, you're going to drop 100 feet to pavement. So, and those kind of features right there, we only hit a few times. It wasn't like we were going out and hitting these day after day. There was probably 3 to 5 features like this in my 15-year career. And, you know, during a year, you might film in an urban spot, you might film 25 or 30 at 30 spots. And like I said, over 15 years, we hit 3 to 5 of shots like that. So those were not common. Those were unique, and for good reason. You know, I mean, something could happen. Even if you have certainty of making it, if the rope snapped, if you caught your edge, if your binding went out, if something, anything, you're done. So, but that's the process. You start small, basics with what's in front of you, and you're going to be a little uncomfortable when you start riding. Like just imagine you've never snowboarded before in your life and you're at the top of your run. You're going to be a little uncomfortable with the basics. And then you go to the next part and it's constantly getting a little bit uncomfortable and then getting comfortable and getting uncomfortable and finding comfort. So it's a constant progression stage.
I mean, I totally agree to what you say, that it's training and you increase what you do every time you do it. I did a lot of skiing when I was young, when I was in school, and I always loved these wood trails. I mean, looking back, I would say there was no fear back then, before I turned 20. When I look at this picture that you show, and as far as I understood you, it shows you that you jumped from this building to the other building.
Correct, yeah.
When I walk to the roof and look from one building to the other, I would say, no way will I ever do it. My question to you is, how do you handle fear and anxiety in such situations? What's your secret?
Well, yeah, just to be clear too, I would never jump that building again right now. Like things would have changed in my life and I would say, no way, it's not worth it. So there was a period of time in my life where snowboarding was everything to me and it meant everything to me. And I wanted the career to happen badly enough where I was willing to, take some risks that I think most people would think were crazy. I will say at the time when we were riding at that level, when you're riding at that level and you're obsessively focused on your craft every single day for 10 years, you do see things differently. You feel differently about what's in front of you, which is why you can ride at that level and others cannot. You've got the experience under your belt that gives you the certainty that you're going to make it. It's possible. Like if anyone said, you think it's possible that we're going to make it, if there wasn't 100% certainty that yes, we will make it, there was no chance I was going to go over that building. So that's part of it, is that you're riding every single day and you're so confident in what you're doing because you've been doing it so many reps, thousands and thousands and thousands of reps, that you're just like, it's like walking. That's what it should feel like. Like you're literally, how hard is it to walk from one end of the room to the other? You're certain you're going to make it. That's how it should feel when you jump a building or when you hit a feature that's, challenging. But I will say the other aspect that changed massively was once I had kids. And I realized that there was more to it than just me coming home at night. And when that you don't come home, you've affected and impacted these children's lives. So my career massively turned once I had my son, and that was about 2018, 2019 where he started to get of age where, it wasn't the day he was born. It was more that I started to realize how much he meant to me and how much it meant to be able to be healthy for the rest of my life.
Yeah, your kids need you. Your kids need you.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's, I think, better for kids to grow up with parents than without parents. So it's a good choice to focus on family.
You bet. Yeah, exactly. I feel the importance of influencing my children is going to probably be the most important thing I do, because if you influence them well, they have the ability and possibility to go out and live a beautiful life and have complete control over themselves and the results that they want to have. And so I think that ability to transfer that onto your kids is powerful and something that I want to take part in every day.
You said you have one son. Did I
Well, now
understand?
I have 3 children. Yep, I have a
Three. Cool.
yeah, a 10-year-old boy who's going to be 11 here next week. I have a 5-year-old son and a 1-year-old daughter.
Congratulations. Great
Thank
family.
you. Thank you. Yes.
Let me use this information for phrasing the next question. So let's just imagine that your kids approach you one day and ask you about your snowboarding career and ask you what are the 3 most important lessons that you learned as a professional snowboarder. What answer would you give your kids?
Yeah, 3 most important lessons I would say first is to follow your passion. Find something you really love to do. And I know that maybe isn't the most popular answer with a lot of gurus, but for me, I know that when I'm doing something I love, I try really, really hard. So that was number 1, is get into something you like, and trying hard will be easy. Because if you're going to do anything that's abnormal, there will be competition at the top, and there will be other people that you will be competing against, which is great. That's what makes it fun. You see what others are doing and you say, hey, can we take some of that and do it my way or another way? So number 1 is passion. Number 2, I think, is just having a clear, certain goal of what success looks like in that area. So for me, it was, I want to be one of the biggest or most well-known professional snowboarders, and I want to make a career out of it. I want to get paid to do it. My parents, I grew up middle class. My parents are so great. They instilled into me to chase my dreams and do what I wanted to do, and that they had no pushback of saying, you should be in college, Daniel. This is that time. My mom and my dad both said, go for it. This is your time to go for it. So I think that is, and they didn't give me any money. They didn't say, here's 50 grand, go figure it out. Here's 100 grand. Do you want to go to Vail next year and snowboard with this elite school where you're going to have trainers with you every day? And I'm not putting people down who did get that, because there are a fair amount of folks who were in the professional snowboarding industry that came up that way. But I almost think that piece of not giving the help was another feather in my hat, and that if it's to be, it's up to me, in the sense that get clear on exactly what success looks like. And then number 3, just don't quit. Just you got to have persistence. So those would be the 3 I had. I mean, it wasn't no track to success. If I could talk to any kids who are young, nothing happens overnight. Creation is a process. You don't just wake up one day and a year later you're a professional snowboarder or in a career that you really, really want to have. It takes time. And that process of creating that, it takes mental training, and that takes time. So I think just, and nothing, it didn't go from nothing like a perfect slope to success. It was ugly. It was painful. There was injuries, major injuries, before I ever got paid anything. Like I was 21 years old and I moved out to Salt Lake City like I did every year. And I fell off of a handrail into a rut and my kneecap dislocated. Boom. And my season that year ended. So it was December. It was either late December or early January. And I felt behind what everybody else was, because I usually moved out right after Thanksgiving. Whereas this year, my family influenced me to stay home for Christmas and then go out, which was a mistake, because if you want to be a top rider or you want to be top in anything, you're going to have to put in the work. And the work started the day after Thanksgiving. That's the day you needed to be there, and you needed to be there focused and riding. And so I didn't do that one year. I got there after Christmas and I started riding right in January, and I felt behind. So I'm rushing, and you can't rush the process. And I made a mistake. Boom, kneecap dislocates, chipped my kneecap, tore my meniscus, and I needed surgery, and it was a 12-month recovery process. So that would, boom, I'm 21 years old. I've been snowboarding rigorously since I was 12 years old. I'm already
I
athlete. Are we?
I think we had a brief freeze. Can we repeat? Can we press replay where you said you were snowboarding professionally since you were 11, 12 years old?
Yeah. I'm not sure what happened there. I'm sorry. But 11, 12 years old, I'm snowboarding every day until I'm 19 or 20. And then I have this major knee injury. And brands are looking for athletes that are younger so they can start to market you sooner, so they have more time as your career goes on, because a lot of times injuries happen and careers are short-lived, especially in action sports. So here I am at 21 years old or 20 years old with a major knee injury. At that point in time, had I not had massive persistence and been committed 100%, that would have been the end of my career. I would have hung it up and went back and started something else, which would have been absolutely horrible, because the next year things took off. What do you got?
I have a question here. I mean, at this point in time, it must have looked to you, this is the end of your career. You have a major injury. And as you said, sponsors, brands are looking for younger folks who put in the work. And you have the message, guys, I won't come back for a minimum of a year. When I listen to people in Austria or in Europe, at this point, some would say, I drop it, I'm done, my life is over, my passion is gone, pick up the bottle, start drinking, and do anything but come back to their sport. My question to you is, what kept you going? I mean, this was a year of your passion project, a year not snowboarding, a year of recovery. What kept you going in this time? What motivated you to come back and not choose another job or do something stupid?
Yeah. So this was before my career took off. This injury happened prior to actually ever making the career happen. But what kept me going and what made me come back was that I was 100% committed toward making it work. I didn't ever even have a thought in my mind of, oh, this maybe isn't going to work. I probably should change gears. I had the surgery. I moved to California where my brother was, and I biked all winter long. I could bike on the beach there, up and down the promenade. I biked the beach 2 hours a day and worked a job and came back the next year, and things took off. So I think it's just the commitment, and commitment to me is to do what is necessary, and to do what is necessary means that you're not going to back down ever. And so I think that was the point in time where if I wasn't 100% committed, it would have all ended. So I'm grateful that that certainty was there. And I think a big part of that comes back to your desire of how bad do you want it and what are you willing to give up?
What was the biggest learning for you in this year that helps you still navigating rough waters?
In that year of the injury, yeah, the biggest thing for that year during the year of the injury was just focus on what's in front of you. Like, you're hurt. What's the next step? You don't look 2 years out and 3 years out and start to wonder and waffle and waver. What can I do today? Well, today I need to have surgery. Okay. Well, who am I calling? The doctor. Okay. This is no one's there during this time in your career. Like, you don't have brands, like with ample amounts of money there to help you and the resources to say, hey, we have doctors here and here. Let's fly you out and get you checked out and help you out. This is you doing it on your own. So it's being committed and not backing down and having a clear desire of what you're going to do, some grit, some fight, and just focusing on what is in front of me today and get the doctor scheduled. Okay. Now you have your doctor scheduled. Now what? Well, now I'm in rehab. Okay. Well, I've got 9 months of rehab. Okay. Well, what does that look like? Who am I going to work with? Where am I going to go? How am I going to keep my mind in the right spot? And I think that's the stuff that comes down to creating success in the future. If you can handle challenges well.
I think this is a great point. Take it day by day. Sometimes it's all you can do, what's in front of you. Do the most obvious thing, but just keep doing.
Keep going. Yes, keep going and push it. And when you think you're pushing it hard, push harder. And that doesn't mean that I would come back and ride before I was ready. That, push harder and where you can. When I had injuries, I took my time until my doctor said, you're 100% clear to go. I didn't push it. A lot of guys would get hurt and they'd try to come back, and gals, and be like, that doesn't hurt. I'm coming back in a month. Don't do that. Take your time. Your body needs the time to heal. And you can do a lot. If you're an athlete, you can do so much. And I'm sure any athlete that's further along in their career understands this, but when you're hurt, it's a great time to visualize. It's a great time to watch videos. You can learn so much by watching videos. And it would happen a lot in the summer. You'd go home, like in Minnesota, we would snowboard from November, December until about March. And then from that time on, there was no snow. So all you could do, and if you weren't going out west to Colorado or to Mount Hood, Oregon, you were watching videos, and you could watch videos all summer long and come back the next year and have tricks learned that you've never done before in your life, just because you spent the time training your brain during the summer months. And that can happen when you're injured. I spent a lot of time watching videos, studying my craft and studying other folks that I thought were good. And as you do that, all of a sudden you took a year off, and I came back better than I was when I got hurt. It's because your brain has mentally been programmed to understand, and you can see it in your head clearly, so you can do it in real life.
Does it make such a difference to watch videos to train your brain instead, as a replacement therapy, let's call it this way, of real snowboarding with real snow?
Yeah, they did a study on this exact question you're asking, and they took a group of basketball players, and they had a group that played every day, a group that only visualized and watched videos every day, and a group that did nothing. The group that played every day did have the best results, but very close behind was the group that visualized and watched the videos. The group that did nothing obviously had very poor results. So yeah, it may not be as good, but it's close. And who knows, maybe for some folks who are very good with their intellect, maybe it would be better. I can't say for sure, but it's close. So at least if you feel like you had an injury and you're going to be way behind when you come back, not necessarily. Spend the time visualizing and obsessing in your mind, and you can progress without being on the field or the course.
Yeah, especially since you have to learn new tricks anyway. So, and you get some inspiration on top of that, compared to basketballers. I mean, this would lead me to a question that I say, thinking about the basketballers, could it mean that if they visualize the wrong thing in their minds, they could destroy their own progress even when they train every day?
Yeah, I think that is another great point. I think you have to fix it in your mind. And this would happen in snowboarding. You try to visualize a trick and you can't. And you have to sit there and or watch a video, watch another person doing it. What I would try to do with snowboarding, the way I can relate to it very easily, is you watch these videos over and over again, you pick a trick you want to learn, and then you go to that one trick and you watch that one trick 100, 200, 300 times, 400 times. And now when you close your eyes, you can see yourself doing it and you can almost feel it.
Really?
And as you do that, you will train on a skill and you will become very good at that skill. If you can see it in your mind's eye and you can feel how it feels, like I can do a frontside rodeo in my mind right now and I can feel how it will feel. A frontside rodeo is a toe side move where you're going to do an inverted 540 and you're going to have a little bit of off axis and you're going to come down switch. And in my mind, it's clear enough where I've done the trick enough where I know exactly how it'll feel to roll and to grab, and there's landing, and boom, there it was. And if you do that enough over and over again, you'll become very comfortable with frontside 540s.
So does that mean, when I try to sum it up for myself, given you have skills as a snowboarder like you have, a person approaches you and says, can you imagine to do this or that trick? And you never did it, and your first reaction is internally, no, it's impossible, I can't. Then this person says, but another snowboarder did it. And you say, show me. And they show you a video, and you can run through this video 100 times. And with each walkthrough of this trick on fast forward, slow motion, walking yourself through every single step of this trick, your confidence level rises until to the point where you feel it doing, and then you go out and do it.
Correct. That's exactly right. And that's why tricks in snowboarding, once one person does it, everyone will start to do it within about a year or two, because now we all have a blueprint to immediately A, watch, and B, now you believe it's possible. So you have the blueprint. This is how it's done. I can see someone doing it. And then you believe they did it. You know they did it. So you know that they did it and how to do it. And boom, a year later, everyone's doing it.
Did you ever try a trick without the belief you can do it?
I don't think so. No, I think that the beginning idea of trying it was that I had confidence that it could be done.
Okay.
And belief. Yep. Faith.
Makes sense. So this is basically a blueprint to increase faith in your own ability.
Yeah. I mean, from the day one of you're strapping in and riding, you see someone else doing it. You're like, they can do it, I can do it. So you start with riding, and then when you get to that level, you see other people hitting jumps. You're like, gosh, I could hit that jump. You see another person do that trick. You're like, man, it looks like I could do that trick. And so I think there is a belief and confidence level before you try anything.
That's great. Let's go a little bit back in the conversation. You mentioned 3 points before that you would tell your kids when they ask what you learned, the 3 most important learnings. So one is follow your passion. The third one was don't quit. This is something which is very often discussed in success, but in the middle, there was a part I heard for the first time. You said, define success. Why is that so important, in your opinion, to have a clear picture of what success looks like in your mind?
Yeah, because the way your brain works is you can't hit a goal. You're unlikely to hit a goal you can't see if you don't have clarity of what it looks like. Your brain needs something to chase, and you need to know what that looks like. Otherwise, you're heading in a direction, like let's just say you're trying to go to the grocery store. You're trying to go to the grocery store, but you don't know where it is. You don't have enough clarity of where it is. You'll start driving. You may find it if you're lucky, but it's very unlikely. Whereas if you say, this is the grocery store and this is the path of when I'm there, I know exactly how to get there. Now you have something that your mind can chase and you can go after. And that's not maybe even the best analogy, because you don't need to know how to do everything. You don't need to know exactly how the process works, because I can tell you right now, when I was younger, I used to tell everyone, and I was young and naive, but confident in that I was going to be a professional snowboarder. And the biggest question I get back in Minnesota as a kid, imagine a 13-year-old, 12-year-old kid who's like, yeah, I want to be a pro snowboarder when I grow up. the question most of the time would be is, how are you going to do that, Dan? You're not super wealthy. You don't live in the mountains. You maybe are decent at it right now, but how are you going to do that? And my answer would always be, I don't know how. I didn't know how, but you don't need to know how. You just need to know what success looks like and just do what you can do in front of you that day. Should I put this back? The sun's coming in pretty bright.
Yeah, a little bit would be great. Yeah, it's better.
Yeah,
it's better now.
Yeah.
So it must be early morning, I think, or
yeah, it is. It's
late morning.
9:15 a.m. here in Washington State. So
9:15.
9:15 a.m. Yep.
Oh, here it's 6:15 p.m.
Okay. Oh, great. Awesome.
So we are in the evening. The clarity about a success goal. How much clarity do you think is necessary to start this process where you subconsciously start chasing your goal? How detailed would you describe your goal?
I think the more clarity you have with belief that it's possible, the faster you'll chase it, because if you can see it more clear on what it looks like and you believe it's possible, you'll take more action. So I think those two pieces are huge. And maybe you don't have exactly what that looks like. I mean, I can't say that for the first year or two that I knew exactly what it would look like, but I knew I had a general idea. And I saw these professional snowboarders in these films, how they were riding. And I really just wanted to emulate how they were riding. I wanted to have that feeling of what it felt like to be able to fly through the air, and land in this pristine powder. So it was probably chasing the feeling partially, but there was an element of wanting to make money. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, what are you going to do being a young kid without parents supporting you? So I think clarity it's huge.
I think money is a side effect of success. Success is defined without money, and money comes as you need it. When I would sum up the last 5 minutes in the Dan Brisse success principle, what stuck with me is, on one hand, spend time defining your success. How does it look like? What do you want to achieve at the end of the day, as detailed as possible, and work on that every single day. And the second thing is then not thinking about what happens in 5 years or what hardship might happen, or I don't have money, I will never achieve that. The second important part is start right now with what you can do right now today. What is a single step? What is a small step that brings you a little bit closer to your goal? Is this the right understanding, or did I miss something?
100%. I think you nailed it. And if you're on your path, make sure it's something you love to do. And if it's something you, because you don't want to be every day being like, I got to go do this. I know I need to do this. Oh man, this is on my mind. I just got to do it. I just got to force myself to do it. You're probably not in the right passion, the right strength zone. Doesn't mean you need to change your whole life right now. Maybe continue on and just be tune in to what would you like to do more of? Because I can say right now that I never had to push myself to go snowboarding. I was always pulled. I was sitting in school, like the teacher's talking, and I'm thinking about a snowboarding. As soon as the bell rings, I'm driving straight to the hill and I'm excited to go. So it wasn't hard. The only time it got hard was when my career started to wind down. And then I started to realize towards the end of like, gosh, this is really a lot of work. And I didn't realize how much work I was putting in ever, because it was always just so much fun. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. 2 questions. Let me start with the first one. Whenever I start something new, it feels like I'm passionate about this new thing, but I'm a little bit deceived by novelty. So everything that's new, that's novel, that I've never done before in my life, feels exciting and it's fun, and I love doing it. But novelty wears off, actually, I think after 6 or 12 months. And then routine sets in and things get a little bit boring. My question to you is, how do you feel the difference between passion, true passion, something you really like doing or really love to do, and just novelty, just this like being in love a little bit. Yeah, you see a beautiful woman and then you say, okay, yeah, she's lovely, and you feel these butterflies in your belly and in your stomach, but it's not really passion, it's not deep love, so it's just a fling. How do you feel the difference between this deceiving novelty feeling and real passion?
Yeah, I think that's a question I can answer based on what has been true for me. And we'll see how it resonates with the folks that are listening. But for me, it's really more on the progress and progression of it. So in the beginning, everything is fun. You're right. It's like, this is new. It's fun. It's exciting. And then within 3 weeks, 6 months, it becomes boring potentially. But if there is progress and that progress is exciting and you're working in that zone or in that field, in that work line, and it isn't always fun. I mean, I will say there have been times in snowboarding where it's work, you know, I mean, and when it's work, it's frustrating. Like something's not going well. I'm PO'd, like I'm upset, I'm screaming, I'm swearing in the backcountry, right? I'm not having fun right there. But there is a part of fun where you're battling through to progression. And I think that's in anything you do. Doesn't matter what it is, whether you're a professional snowboarder, athlete, real estate investor, you're going to come through times that PV off that are tough. That doesn't mean you're not in your passion or your strength zone necessarily. If you're straight up bored, I would ask, are you progressing? Because even in my snowboarding career, when I was kind of peaking and started to go downhill, I started to get more bored. And boredom came in when progression stopped. So I think progression and happiness or passion are connected and linked. So I think the combination of do you have to force yourself to go to work every day for a long period of time? Probably not a good sign. And then if you do go, are you bored or are you progressing? And this is more of a internal game. Success is an internal game, or achieving results is an internal game, whatever you want to call that. And you've got to tune in to how you feel on a day-to-day basis and thinking the right way to get what you want.
I mean, becoming a professional, I think, is challenging in a way that initially everything is exciting and there is a lot of novelty. But when you really want to become a professional in any area, there is this point where people must start, in my opinion, realize that basically they have to focus on a few core skills and repeat those skills over and over and over and over again. And they have to create some sort of routine. And this is one of my biggest blocking stones. Routines are boring. So it's doing the same thing every single day, day in, day out. What helped you to overcome this feeling of boredom in your professional career as a snowboarder and also real estate investor?
That's a great point, and you're 100% right. Boredom kills a lot of careers. I think that comes back down to, can you progress? How can you do better? And where's your next goal? Where are you going? You know, what's the next step look like? What does the next success step look like? And I can say, like, you know, during the years where I had the best time, it was the most challenging and probably the most frustrating, but the most progress. So if you're bored and the routine is boring, you probably mastered it. Is there another level you can take it to? Is there a different direction you can move it to? And, you know, for real estate snowboarding, it's simple, right? Learn the next trick. There's always a next trick. We've learned everything. You've never learned everything, right? And most crafts are that way. In real estate, maybe it's how can we create X amount of passive income for our investors? How can we create that next level and the next level? And then maybe that becomes boring because you created enough income. Now maybe the switch comes to, how can we use this to make the world a better place? What can we do with the money we're making now? So yeah, real estate is still there and you're still pumping into that program, and you got your systems aligned and you've got a company producing excess cash flow. Now do you take it and head another direction? I think that's the beauty of life, is you got to tune in and you've got to make those decisions and realize, based on how you feel, the direction you need to take things.
Before we step into real estate, I have a final question to your snowboarding career. So you said one of your decision points to look for something else in your life were your children. So this was the first time that you started thinking about giving your life a different direction. And the second one you mentioned a few minutes before, you said your career started winding down. And what happened that you felt your career started winding down?
Yep, it was the mix of me feeling like my children and being around mattered more than being a snowboarder. And once that started to happen, I started to apply myself less vigorously. And I started to put in less effort and take less risks. And due to that, I started to ride at a little bit lower level. So, just imagine 11 years old until about 28. I'm constantly in this path of progress. And then my children start to influence me. And now I start to try a little less hard, and it's like a big arc, and I'm kind of flatlined for a while, and nobody really saw the flat, and except for me. I knew internally, I'm like, you're not really getting better. You're out here, you're running laps, you're doing the work, but no one's really aware of it other than me. And then you start to actually decline because now you're not putting in the work. And so it was a combination of those two things: less effort because I had other things that were more of a priority than progressing on my snowboard.
And what kept you from fighting through? So what helped you change direction instead of saying, I have to man up, I have to fight through this phase and give my everything?
Yeah, for me, it was a realization that the only way that you get paid to be an athlete is to perform at a high level. That's the way that my mind told me. And that's the reason I thought the brands were paying me, was because you could do something unique on your snowboard that very few others in the world were willing to do or able to do. So, and the conflict was that I wasn't willing to do that anymore because I now had kids, and I could see that coming in the future. And it was very scary, actually. It was a very, very challenging time in my life, in the sense that here I have this identity that I am a professional snowboarder. This is who I am. This is Dan Brisse. Dan Brisse is a professional snowboarder. And then you can see in the future that won't be there. There's coming a time where you can feel it, based on how you feel with your kids and what you're seeing, that it's going to come to an end. And that ending is very scary. Imagine, some of your listeners that maybe have a career and they can see their career is going to come to an end, and there's not going to be enough money for retirement. Potentially could be something that your listeners could relate to. So that happened for me at 33 years old, 34. I just had it earlier than a lot of people have it, and I made good money as a snowboarder. I wasn't making millions a year, but I was making pretty dang good money, really good money compared to where I was in Minnesota growing up and a lot of the people I was around. But it wasn't enough to be able to say, hey, I'm 36, I'm retiring the rest of my life, and I'm going to travel and have all my homes paid for, and life's just done. I don't need any more money. That was not where I was at. So I needed to find something else. So I think that realization that it's going to come to an end, and I have responsibility of a family, and I want something else that I'm passionate about in my life. I'm only 33 years old. Like, what the heck am I going to do for the next 60 years of my life? Hopefully I live to be 90, 100, I don't know, later. I don't know, a long time. So it was everything. It was a realization early that things were going to come to an end. You got to find something else. What would be something that could give you some passion, similar freedom, similar or better income. And so that was where I started to transition and use the capital I was making as an athlete or as a snowboarder to start buying multifamily to create multiple streams of income. And that was always the goal, was how can you create multiple streams of income so that you're not so dependent on this one thing. That was another realization that hit me hard, was in your snowboarding career is done, your income is zero. Doctors, something happens, your income is zero. And although it's great money, you're very dependent on your health.
Yeah, sometimes there is a time when you realize it's time to quit and find something new.
Yeah.
And living from one stream of income, it's not very sustainable. So it must not be a snowboard career. It can be a job. There's no job guarantee.
Yeah.
So you came in your career to the point where you said, I quit now. How did you find your new goal?
Mm-hmm. Well, it didn't go quite like that, where I say I quit now. What actually happened is I don't want to say I milked the system, because it wasn't. I still rode hard, but I didn't come to my brands and be like, guys, I'm done. They started to see the effort wasn't being applied and the results weren't where they were. And then they came to me. So it was a little bit of, I was holding on and wanting to hold on due to fear. Right? I'm just being totally transparent right now for everybody. I didn't want it to end because I was scared, but I did want it to end because I didn't want to take the risks. It's a challenging place to be in. So when that was happening, I was highly motivated again by fear. Fear motivates. If you can tap into fear, it's not all bad. Fear can motivate you. And a lot of times fear motivated me in snowboarding, but in this case, fear motivated me in saying, what are you going to do next? And it's not a question of if, it's a question of when is it going to happen? When are you going to end? And what are you going to do? So that's where during the summers of my snowboarding career, when I'd have this time off, I would be reading every financial book I could get my hands on to try to better understand what to do with money. Money wasn't talked about and trained when I was growing up. So I didn't really know what to do with a dollar. I still remember calling some of my wealthier parents' friends and saying, hey, if you had $100,000, what would you do with it? And their answer was, well, I always paid off debt, and I just paid debt down, which is a decent answer. It's not bad. But it was hard to figure out what to do with the money you made, because really step one is there's two parts to creating wealth. And I would rather be wealthy if I'm going to be here than not. And part one is first, you got to make the money. Second is what do you do with it? And so those two things are always different levels of skill, how much you're earning and how well you're investing it. And those two can always be improved upon, which is kind of a fun thing, is similar to snowboarding, is you never maxed out this field of business. You can always do it more and you can always do it better. And I think that's something that is interesting and caught my attention at a pretty young age, is there is always levels and areas for improvement, just like in sports with business. So that's where my mind went. And I started buying small stuff. I bought a duplex, I bought a 9plex, I bought 24 units. And those are small compared to what we're buying now, but those were the seeds, and they weren't nice properties. They were built in the 70s and the 60s, and they were old and they were run down, and it's what I could afford. And I thought I could afford at the time. So that's what I started with. And I started to see a little trickle of income from each of these assets. And those little trickles of income and putting the currency, the money that I was making to work to pay me, was very eye-opening, and it shifted my perspective of reality, of what I could do with money.
Let me ask you one question to what you said. I can imagine the place you were with your brand deals. I think probably the business life in snowboarding is as tough as anywhere else. If you perform, you're in. If you stop performing, you're out. Then you have to provide for your family. And if when you stop performing, they will terminate the contract. You won't make any money. So it's a scary place to be. You don't want to take more risk than necessary to be there for your kids, and the brands push you to take more risk. And then you started searching for alternatives. When I look at the two areas, snowboarding and real estate, in your career, except jumping from buildings, I think this is a completely different world. Why did you discover passion for real estate? What motivated you to walk into this direction?
Yeah, what discovered the passion for real estate and what motivated me to go in the direction was passive income. I keep saying it. I'm hitting on it kind of hard. I'm realizing is just that you can find a way that your money can work for you, so you don't have to work for a paycheck. And that idea was worth pursuing and chasing for me as the top priority. Not that I don't like to work, I just work in a different manner now, of saying, hey, how can we produce more income from assets versus me going and getting a job and being dependent on somebody else to decide if I'm going to stay or not stay in their company. So I think it was the combination of passive income. It was a combination of there's no limits. There's no limit to how far you can take this business. You could own you could have 5,000 units under management. You could have 100,000 units under management. What do you want? So there was nobody deciding and dictating our pace, and still isn't. There's no one saying, hey, you have to buy this many or you have to do this. It's 100% up to us. So there's a lot of freedom. And I started to see that you could save with tax legally, and one thing that you don't get taught in Minnesota or in the US, and I'm not sure if it's taught in Europe, but if you go out for different lines of work, you're going to be taxed differently. And those different tax quadrants are just like the game, like you think of the game of Monopoly. The game has rules, and I didn't create the game. I didn't create the rules, but they're there. And if you're going to play the game of Monopoly, you need to know the rules in order to win, or to have the chance at winning the game. And business is a little bit, like I know people are like, it's no game. If you lose, how do you like losing? Well, I do think of it a little bit as a game of how can I play the game better? What are the rules of the game? And if you're going to play the game, what are they to be able to get the results you want? So that's really what it more turned into, is you have this tax haven as well, that if you play the game and you know the rules and you hire the right CPA and you get that clarity, now you know how to behave and you know what to do and what not to do and why. And if you don't know those things, you're likely going to spend a majority of your time, which is not bad and it's okay, but you're going to spend the majority of your time working to pay the government, which, hey, just got to know, you just got to figure out what you want to do. And it can sound bad because people might be listening being like, well, this guy doesn't pay his fair share of taxes. But I would say the piece I would add to that is that we employ a lot of people. We pay a lot of people. And if we didn't have those tax savings, we would not be able to employ as many folks. So, and we wouldn't be able to take care of the properties as well. So there's a lot more to it than I hope I didn't just lose people by being like, oh, this guy doesn't pay his taxes. There's a lot more to it. And you got to understand the full circle.
I think in absolute numbers, you pay much more than other people do. I operate out of Europe, and Europe has very high taxes. So I think I totally understand what you say. Let's talk about the beginning of your real estate career. I can imagine that it was a scary moment, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. But the picture I have in mind after what you said is that you made decent money as a snowboarder, but it didn't put you on the Forbes billionaire list. So starting as a real estate investor, there is one step. You need to take some of your money and put it into your first property. How was the step for you? Was it an easygoing step? You say, okay, I have the money, I throw it in and I know it will work, or was it a scary moment like snowboarding?
Yeah, it was a challenging moment because you could put your money anywhere, right? You have currency, cash in the bank, and you can put it in a million different places to try to make money. And why is that one the one you're going to choose? And you could overwhelm yourself in thinking that way, or I try to focus in on one thing and become an expert at that one thing is what worked well for snowboarding. For snowboarding, it was, I'm a snowboarder and this is the one thing I'm going to get really great at. And with real estate, multifamily and apartments made sense to me at that point in my life and still do. So I decided to become an expert and obsessively learn about how to buy and own and manage apartments at a high level. And that doesn't mean we figured it all out yet today. 10 years later, after we've been owning apartments now since 2012. So 11 years later, I'm still learning. We're still progressing. There's still better ways to do things. There's still more efficient ways to do everything. So, I'm forgetting your question. What was your original question there?
How was it to put your money into the first property emotionally?
Yes. So that was, in order to do that first deal, you needed enough confidence and belief in what you were doing. And the only way I got that was through education. So you're going to have to take time and learn about an asset class until you say, wow, I can see the future. Once you've studied an asset class enough, you can see the future to a certain extent, or at least you believe you can see the future. And if you understand how to create value in an asset class like apartments, you can somewhat say, hey, we're buying at X, in 5 years, it'll be worth Y, so if you have that clarity, again, it's kind of like being able to see behind the scenes mentally, because you've learned stuff and you visualize it and you've got the tools to be able to predict what's coming. And that will help you become a wealthier real estate investor, just like in snowboarding. If you can see it clearly in your mind about how a trick is going to go, you're going to be much more likely to hit that goal.
That's a great point. I think it's the fourth principle you said: follow your passion, define success, don't quit. And then you mentioned focus. So you started your real estate career not by going to the bank, say, give me 100 million loan, interest rates are almost zero anyways, and I buy the property. You first did your work and did your research on real estate. How much time did you invest before you bought your first property in studying the area that you want to operate in?
Yeah, I would say that I spent about 6 months of study time, and that consisted of reading probably 8 to 10 books on real estate, and I probably went to 3 to 5 seminars. So I do think there is a point where you come to analysis paralysis of you just need more information, and you never know enough, and you never take a step, and you never take a risk. So that comes back again internally of saying, okay, I've read a fair amount. I've been to a bunch of seminars. At some point, you got to try. You got to take a step. And so I don't know exactly how to say that when that will be for anybody else, but for me, I hit a point where I felt confident enough with the information I had to give it a shot. And so I started with, it was actually a 9-unit deal, and then a duplex I bought a little bit later. And they both ended up being great deals because of the timing of the market. Really, you couldn't do in the US in 2012, you bought real estate, you really couldn't miss. So that's part of something to consider too, is was I a genius and so good, or was it that the cycle was heading in the right direction in the water where you were flowing in the tide correctly? So that's how it went.
Yeah, in the bubble, everybody is an expert.
Right.
Yeah, I think many people in the equity markets realized that last year when the bubble popped, at least in Europe, and many companies went down by up to 80-90%, which were 12 months earlier hyped by YouTube.
Wow.
A lot of cryptocurrencies went extinct during this process. FTX had some interesting stories, and real estate, I think also there is some correction going on. But let's stay first on the positive side of life. What was the investment that you did in the last 10 years that made you proud? What was your best investment?
Yeah, I would say it was either we bought a 45-unit deal in a little town called River Falls, Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a state here. And then we also bought a property in Cleburne, Texas. And both of those deals were bought with in the right location, the right debt, the right value add business plan, and were managed extremely well. And they were rolling with the cycle up. And they were both sold in 2021. So those deals, we 300% returned, or 3x'd our investors' money. So if you put 100,000 in, we gave you your 100,000 back plus, $200,000 of value. So you 3x'd your capital.
That's in what period?
In about a 24-month period, 2-year period.
That's great.
So, and this is not a normal return in real estate, right? That's an abnormal number. So it's not something that investors should say, oh, I'm invested in this deal and I didn't 3x my money. What happened there? So it's more of a everything was working in your favor, and you had a couple really big home runs. Typical returns are much lower, 20 to 25% annually if you did a pretty dang good job, not 100% or 125% annually or more.
But we all love these outlier successes. One of mine is NVIDIA. I bought the shares a couple of years ago, and now they are really capitalizing on artificial intelligence. Talking about artificial intelligence, NVIDIA, the next question leads to business models. What is the business model that you are running with your company? Just asking the question because initially you said you bought property for yourself, and then you mentioned that you bought property for your investors. How does your business life look like in 2023, business model wise?
Yeah, yeah. In the beginning, I was just buying real estate on my own. I was buying with my own money and a couple friends here and there. And then now the way our company is set up is we go out and find the deals. We raise the equity, we sign on the debt and get the debt lined up. We create the business plan, and our equity partners then are shown the deal and they decide, yep, I'd like to invest with you, or I'm going to wait for another deal. That's our model.
So you have a deal by deal model. You collect money for single deals. And how do you do that, the collection process? Do you set up a fund, or
Yeah.
what's the legal model?
Yep, you got it. We set up a 506B, which is a fund where we can raise capital legally here in the US. And when we have a deal, we'll create the fund and we'll create the investor presentation of, here's the deal, here's the business plan, here's the debt, here's the location, here's the depreciation, and here's the team, and here's what we're going to do over the next 5 years. We usually set our deals up on a 5-year hold, or 3 to 7 is kind of the number to think about as an investor. And then once that's available, it is shot out to our investor database. These are all pre-existing relationships, folks we've met over the last 7-8 years of attending events pretty regularly, nonstop. This is what we do, kind of back to snowboarding. Like, that's what we did. That's what I did. This is now what I do. I'm a real estate investor. That's what we do. It's all I do. And we don't have multiple asset classes currently. It's just multifamily. We do have a friend who we've done a lot of investing with, who has done a lot of triple net leases, and we may bring that into our portfolio with his guidance. But right now, it's 100% multifamily. And once that deal's available, we bring it to our investors, and we buy it as a group, and we own it as a group. You're a business owner with us. That takes zero work. You basically decide, I want to invest or not invest. You sign your docs, you wire your funds, and then you're along for the ride, collecting a monthly update from us as the lead sponsors throughout the life of the hold.
How does it work? You go out on the market, find interesting properties, sit down with your team and calculate a business model and say, okay, how much can we rent out? How long do we need to hold it to have an uptake in value? And then you plan for 5 to 7 years, if I understood you right. What happens after the 5 to 7 years? Do you wind down the property? Basically, you sell it to a third party and return the capital, or do you plan on keep holding it?
Depends. One of two options. Either you're going to sell it after 3 to 7 years, somewhere in there, depending on the market and the value and what you're seeing happening in that sub-market where that property is sitting. And if you sell it, obviously you as an investor you'd be done. We're all done. We all liquidate, take our equity, and do what we choose to do with that equity from there. Or you're going to refinance the deal, and refinancing the deal simply means that you have improved the value of the property enough where a lender is saying, hey, the value was 10 million when you bought it 3 years ago. Now it's 15 million. And because the value is 15 million because of your net operating income, and that's just your income minus expenses is your net operating income, due to your NOI, your net operating income, the deal now qualifies for more debt because you have more income. And it allows you to put different debt on, take the initial debt out, and give a large portion or all of the investors' equity back and hold the deal long term. That's a tax-free play where you don't have to get your money back and then pay tax on it. It's borrowed money, so it's tax-free.
Okay. Do you only accept US-based investors, or do you also accept investors outside the United States?
We can accept investors outside the US. Yes, it's ideal when you have a larger chunk of funds because there is more paperwork, legal work, but it's possible.
Must they be registered in the United States as an investor, or is it no paperwork that needs to be done?
So did you ask if you're an investor in the US, is there paperwork?
No, for investors outside the US, I think certain deals are restricted to some sort of registration process in the United States as an investor. How is it in real estate when people, for example, from the United Arab Emirates, from Germany, from Switzerland, from Austria, might consider looking at your fund structure? What should they expect on paperwork that comes with that? Is it just like putting money in a savings account? They have to wire the money to you and you invest it for them and that's it? Or is there some mandatory paperwork that needs to be cleared first?
Yeah, our legal team, so this is definitely above my pay grade when it comes to the attorney's language and exactly what needs to be filed to be done legally, and I'm no attorney. But our legal team, when we have investors from, say, Canada or Europe that are looking to invest, our legal team advises the investors to work with their legal team or CPA to make sure that they're set up correctly on their end, and then they come into our fund. So that would be something, again, where I'm saying, where if you have a group of 5, 10, 20 investors who want to do that, it might be worth it and more interesting to do it that way, because there may be some legal work on the front end from an attorney or a CPA. And I don't think it'd be a lot, but there will be some work for them to make sure that based off of the country you're coming from, that things are above the line and we're not, doing things illegally.
Yeah. That's very helpful, and your team assists in that work, so you know the right people to talk to clear everything.
Yeah, we can help with that. Help with finding a local attorney in your country. That would be on the investor's end, and most of our investors are either accredited or sophisticated, and they have somebody on their team or they know somebody who can at least get them in line with the legal counsel.
Super. Let's talk about the challenges in real estate. We talked about challenges in snowboarding. There are always these nice deals like Nvidia or Warren Buffett invested in Apple, and Apple just knows one way it's up. But there are also some deals that really don't go well. One of my mishaps was Wirecard, German company that went bankrupt. The case looked very well, looked great. They were audited by the world's best tax consultants, auditors. They had that from the world's best banking institutions like Deutsche Bank, and they were a public company listed on the premium market in Germany, and they went bankrupt within 1 year at the beginning of the pandemic. And I thought that can never happen. But such things happen when people invest. Would you like to share one of your cases where you say you did all the work, you thought the deal is really great, it works out fine, and it went just simply in the other side, in the other direction? You had maximum conviction, and reality said, "Okay, we have a different opinion on that."
Yeah, for sure. We bought a deal in Carlsbad, New Mexico, 100% dependent on oil. And it's a market we don't buy in anymore, just because of the volatility of the market. We buy in Dallas and Nashville, Fort Worth, markets that are very insulated with major lines of employment. But we bought this deal, is a 101 unit deal in Carlsbad. We closed on it, and 4 months later, COVID hit. And obviously, once COVID hit, oil crashed and everyone stopped traveling and oil went down, and so did employment. Everybody that was working in the field drilling went home. And just like every other business, apartments work on supply and demand. And once the supply went up massively and demand dropped, we had a lot of people vacating and leaving. So our occupancy was 98 to 100% occupied, with rent increases that were huge. COVID hits, 6 months later, we're about 65 to 70% occupied with major rent decreases. So that was a challenging moment for us indeed. And it was very eye-opening in the sense of picking locations. What I'm proud to say is we've never done a capital call, or we've never asked investors for more money on that deal. And we're luckily in the moment in time right now, back to 96% occupancy, with rents going up very quickly because the market has healed itself. But it was very eye-opening and a great lesson for us to learn that it doesn't matter if you buy right, it doesn't matter if your debt's right, it doesn't matter if you got a great value plan and you're good at managing. If your location is volatile, you have got to be ready and able to withstand a storm. And luckily we had a lot of liquidity on hand, and we were able to weather the storm, and we're heading towards bringing it to the market, and hopefully we can exit the deal for a nice gain. It won't be like the gain I just talked about, but it'll still be a nice base hit win. So that's a story that, and this is where we learn the most, is through the pain. Ray Dalio talks about progress plus reflection is what is going to help, and pain plus reflection is going to help you learn. And so I'm grateful for the pain we've gone through, and that it didn't wipe us on that one, and that we're able to live to see another day and hopefully just get out with a nice return.
Do you enjoy the pain?
Man, I can say in the moment I don't. In the moment I'm in the moment I very much dislike it. Looking back, I am appreciative for it.
Yeah, but this, I think it was unexpected. I mean, who plans for a pandemic that everything gets shut down from one day to the other? I had a call in beginning of March 2020, when I think it was Israel, the first country here in Europe that thought about applying lockdowns. And there was a conference in Paris planned. And I asked my friend, when I'm in Paris, should we meet for coffee? And he said, do you really think you can fly to Paris in 2 weeks? And I said, I'm confident. I don't think the world will go on lockdown. And I was wrong. So I totally understand that this is something that nobody can factor into a business plan, even when it's short term. When the pandemic hit, you said that, of course, oil went down.
Yeah.
And your occupancy rates also went down because people just left, went home, met with the family. Supply was there, demand went down. What kept you in the game? Why did you decide not to just throw it away and say, okay, well, we are done with that, we sell it off, let's rescue what we can from the capital, but this will never return? What kept you motivated to hold the asset until now?
Gosh, that idea never even crossed my mind to just throw it in the towel and give up. I think it's because you believe that you can get through, and that you believe that you're going to find a way to still win. And I think that when you're raising capital, so in this deal, we raised 3.1 million from our investors. Those investors have put their trust in you to say, you're the guy that I'm betting on, and you're the deal, you're controlling this deal that's going to make us money, and just giving up and saying we couldn't get it done. You have no chance of being a real estate investor if that's how you were going to behave, right? That's not an option. So that was what it was for me, is that I've got a lot of folks who trust me and put their trust in us through performance of giving us their money. And so we take that very seriously, in the sense that you're never going to quit. You're going to figure it out. and that's what we're doing.
I think this is one of the most important lessons in investing. In principle, it's simple. Buy when the price is low, sell when the price is high. But I think many people burn capital because they react in the opposite direction. So everybody, when the market is running, when the market is in a hype cycle, it's lovely buying something. When every newspaper writes, it just can get better. We have a new age. I think it was also during the pandemic, the digital revolution. There was only one way it was up. And this is the time when many people buy. And then on the other side, on the flip side, when the market is hostile, like it's right now, people don't want to buy. And I have observed this behavior in almost every market, equity market, business owners, everything that has to do with investment, also venture capital, for example. I realized that also venture capital can easily come into this territory where they follow their own crowd and echo chamber and invest when everybody invests and walk away. Also limited partners in venture capital have a similar behavior. They buy high and sell low on the other side. So now would be the best time, in my opinion, to invest in high risk assets because the market evaluations are low. but they have no experience in real estate. How is this emotional component in real estate investing? Do you also observe something like that many people love buying when the times are great and are scared when the times are like they are right now?
You nailed it. I mean, you nailed it. In 2021, when prices were peaking and people were buying with bridge debt, high leverage, short-term loans, very low interest rates, investors were jumping in as fast as they could. Yep, you got a deal, I'm in. You got a deal, I'm in. I would see so many deals be getting done in 2021. Now you got in 2023, prices have pulled back massively, 20 to 30% discounts in pricing. Debt has pulled back massively. You can't get a loan for more than 65% leverage. Interest rates have gone up, causing the price to be pulled back. And you're in a totally different buying scenario, 10 times, maybe even 20 times safer now, in my opinion, than it was then. And people are scared and they're holding back. And they're like, this isn't a good time to invest. And it's as eye-opening as I've ever seen in my life, as far as, because this was really the first real recession pullback I've been through in my real estate career, because I only started buying in 2012. The last big pullback was the Great Recession here in the US of 08, 9, 10, 11. So, or 08, 9, whatever years old were. So this is the first time I've seen it more clearly than ever, that if you have cash and equity and liquidity, this is the time to be buying deals. We're buying a deal right now. And the capital raise on the deal was $9.2 million. And it was a very difficult time to raise the money. We have it and we're closing here on Friday, which is great. It's good to close on the deal. But I'm just telling you firsthand, talking to investors over the last month on the phone, sharing with them the deal and why we like the deal and the debt and the business plan and all that. A lot of them get excited and they hear the news 2-3 days later, and then they pull out and quit. So you have to understand what's going on as an investor. You have to understand that just because the market says on the news says it's not a good time, that's the time to be investing, because everything is pulled back. It's not when the news is talking about how great crypto is or how high real estate prices are. That is the time to be selling if you have the assets. But in order to sell them, you have to buy them when they're low.
But this is so tough. Nvidia is the example that pops up in my mind while you were speaking. In, I think it was 2021, December, they were around 100 something, and now they're about 400. And many professional investors sold back then. And then artificial intelligence hit, everybody had conviction again, the price just went up. It's so tempting to sell, to not do something. I'm curious to hear from you how you handle your sales calls, because basically you have to ring through investors and convince them to put their money down. And I think probably you face a similar situation like every salesperson. You have those with conviction that are easy to convince, small minority. Then you have those who are scared to death and will never invest, and regardless of what you tell them. And then you have this middle ground of people having objections, but you can convince them that now is the right time. What are the 3 things that you tell them to convince them to take the opportunity at hand, which might be the best opportunity in their life?
Yeah. You know, I'm never trying to convince. I'm not out saying, hey, well, I want to convince you to invest with me on this deal. It's more of just saying, hey, here's what we're doing, and here's why we like the deal, and here's the data behind why we like the deal. If you see that opportunity, let's roll. And if they're pushing back, I'm never calling twice or 3 times. This is not our style. But you know, one thing that gives me confidence, and I try to relay this to the investors, is that if we can solve for cash flow, which again comes back to passive income. And what that means is if you can take your income and you can take your expenses, and you know what your income is and where it's going based off of the market, and you know where the expenses are and where they're going based off of the market, which takes time. It takes a team. We're working with our property management, our professional management company that's on the ground managing thousands of units in these markets. If we can work with them and understand the market and have a clear idea of income, clear idea of expenses, and then a control of our debt, of what the debt's going to cost, because it's fixed and you know the number. Are you in a place where you have cash flow every month? Are you in a place where you have passive income every month? And how much is it? Conservatively, you can adjust your underwriting to say, okay, maybe we won't have that much rent growth. Let's pull back a little bit because we're probably going into a recession here. Or, hey, we're going to have the expenses. Let's bump the taxes up a little bit more just in case. And if you do those things and you still have cash flow with your fixed debt, let's go. That's the number that makes the decision for me. Because as long as we can get through the next 6, 12, 18 months with cash flow, it's very likely you're going to come out on the other side with a valuation that's going to be bonkers. So and then that's when everybody will be coming back in, because they'll hear all of the good things happening in the news. And you'll be the one who said, well, these guys are going to buy this for that, and we can get that return again. We'll liquidate for that. And so that's really the name of the game is, can you get to cash flow now? And how confident are you in that? And can you ride the storm for a little while? No one's disappointed getting 6 to 7% cash on cash return on their money while inflation's happening. Our investors are so happy with that. You know, it's and then you get the big bump on the end and you're getting 15 to 20 to 30% a year. It's a great number.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it needs people to understand market cycles. When I think back to 2022, the startups that I'm working with, I mean, many are run by first-time founders, and they never experienced a market crisis or a crash. And I read yesterday on LinkedIn a comment from a US-based company where the CEO said, we tried to operate in 2022 like we did in 2020, which I thought, okay, it's obviously wrong. And we started recommending the startups early last year, when the crisis in Ukraine and Russia began. I said, look, I mean, this is not going well. And energy prices will surge because of the energy markets in Europe, which means investors will pull back. When the huge institutions are scared, they don't put money into venture capital. And when venture capital is scared, they don't put money into startups and scale-ups. And when they don't put money into startups and scale-ups, you only have to answer one question: how long can you make your cash last? It's pretty much the same that you said before. It's about the cash runway, and you just have to survive the next months, and then you come out very nicely at the end of the day. My question to you is, what's your philosophy about market cycle? How do you describe to people what's going on right now in the market?
Yeah, I think this is a very pinpoint question if I'm going to answer from real estate in the sense of what we buy. So I can't speak on startups. I can't speak on real estate in New York. I can't really speak on real estate in LA. I can speak on real estate in sub-markets in Dallas that we buy in and own in, and in Nashville. And adding that to what asset class you're buying. We're not buying A-class deals. A-class would mean brand new. And I think you're going to see a lot of pain in a lot of markets in A-class deals, particularly Nashville, because of how many units are coming online. Supply and demand is getting out of whack because so many new units are coming online. So for us, in our little tiny niche, you know, it's a small little world with this little sub-market and this specific asset class, we're competing against, call it 7 to 10 competitors in a sub-market. And when you buy the deal, you have to understand what the comps are doing and how insulated the market is for job growth and variety of jobs in that market. Remember my scenario or example of Carlsbad, New Mexico, it's oil. Oil crashes, you're screwed. In Dallas, you may have 10 or 15 major economic drivers, and your submarket and asset class may be at 96 to 98% occupancy. And if you can find 7 to 10 comps in that 95 to 98% occupancy, and you know you're insulated on workforce, and you're targeting a specific income producer, you can figure out with the data, more time than we have to go into here, what the likelihood is of hitting those numbers or close to those numbers if you do X, Y, and Z for upgrades, because you're trying to match and beat your competition, right? And you're going to physically walk and secretly shop all of the comps with your own eyes. You're going to put someone on our team, or me or Mike or someone on our team will literally secret shop, hat backwards, show up. Hi, my name is Jeff. I would like to rent here. I'm going to be doing insurance salesman. I'm going to be here in 1 month. What do you have for leasing? And you comp, you do a shop comp, and then you can predict a little bit more. Can't say for sure, but you can predict a little bit more of what's likely coming over the next 24 months based off of all this data.
There is one point that I wrote down while you were speaking, which I think is quite interesting because it resembles your career in snowboarding, in my opinion, and also your career in real estate. It's know your niche, niching down on a very, very narrow market. You mentioned it in snowboarding before, or as my interpretation of what you said, that you defined your dream, your niche, and then worked hard but stayed in your niche. And I think this is a very valuable lesson for many investors and many people and many business founders. You applied the same principle then in real estate. You defined a clear niche. I mean, while you were speaking, you could really define what you're looking for, in which areas, how do the assets look like, what's your competition, and you stay in your niche.
Right.
And my question to you is, how do you do that to stay in your niche? Very often when I see first-time founders, and you also founded a business with real estate, they go out on the market and suddenly the world opens up with a lot more possibility, a lot more opportunities, and they start leaving their niche too early. So they don't double down on their market. They start very quickly expanding their market and say, okay, in real estate, it could be, why not go into commercial real estate? Why not buy larger properties? Why not do everything and talk about every real estate possible that we could buy? Because there are so many opportunities out there. How do you do that every single day that you stay in your niche?
Yeah.
Focused?
Well, number one, that niche and creating that criteria has taken 10 years in real estate. It didn't, I wasn't like, whoa, we got this criteria, let's stick to this. It was a lot of learning and a lot of mistakes, a lot of pain of saying, oh, that didn't work, we got to adjust this worked great over here, how can we apply that to this as we buy moving forward? And it's taking past successes and pain and further putting it into a smaller box of, this is exactly what we're looking for. And if we can hit these 6 boxes that have been pain and these 6 boxes of success and put it into one deal, the chances of us being successful have gone up significantly. So it's really just been trial and error. And we work with a mentor on this stuff and have helped us miss, I think, a lot of major pain points. But it's coming down to refining and constantly refining and honing in on your investing criteria. You know, one thing I love, what I heard Warren Buffett say, is that they're always buyers. Every single day they're buyers, but it has to hit their criteria. And if it doesn't hit their criteria, we'd love to buy it, but we can't. And I love to think of us in that scenario too. We're always buyers. Get very clear on your criteria. And now it comes down to self-discipline of saying, hey, we could buy. There are investors in our database that want to buy, but we're going to say no because it doesn't hit our criteria. That's the most astute investor I think you're going to come across, is the ability to say no because of it not aligning with, you know, past pain or successes.
So it's a balance, basically. Success is also a balance between focus and trial and error. You said 10 years of playing around on the market before you found your way.
Totally. And you're going to learn more in these markets during pain. I mean, we're learning some lessons. That's the reality of it. In 2021, we bought a few deals, and we have, I think, 19 deals under our portfolio. 3 of them have variable rate loans, and we're going through some pain on those deals. And we're figuring out, how are you going to manage them? And what are you going to do moving forward to make sure you're never in that scenario ever again? So to say that everything has just been uphill has not been accurate, but you take the pain. And I would actually be cautious of investing with people who've never gone through any pain, because there will be pain, guaranteed. There's just a matter of when. And the only question will be is, did you learn and did you stick with it, or did you change course and jump to something else?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There will be pain.
Mhm.
And this is the best time to learn, because I think it opens up the conscious and subconscious mind in a way that the glory times on the market won't. Your team sent me a link to a book about real estate investing that you wrote. Let's talk about your book. What motivated you to write a book, and what is it about?
Yeah, it's called The 4 Steps to Successful Passive Investing. And we wrote the book just to help. A lot of our investors were unclear on what, passive investing even was. And we just wanted to give them a high level look of basic questions and things to be understanding and understand what the heck you're looking for to be able to invest a bit more in a bit more sophisticated manner. And it was, I can't remember exactly how many pages long, maybe 15, 20 pages. It's not that long, but it's very good information to help investors avoid making catastrophic mistakes in, real estate. And it can happen. But if you know what you're doing a little bit, and some great deal sponsors, know people that have track records, know that have skin in the game right alongside you, you can do very well. And it can be a very nice additional asset class to be invested in to diversify your income or your investments.
What type of readers do you recommend your book to?
Anybody 12, I mean, if you're 15 years old to your late ages, it will apply for you if you want to learn about real estate investing.
And it's for free, isn't it?
It is. Yes, it is for free. It is just simply a tool to help educate folks. And if you have questions after you read the book, reach out to us directly. There's a contact us form right on our website. Just granitetowersequitygroup.com, granite like the rock, towersequitygroup.com, and there's a contact us tab, and you can reach out us directly to our team, and it'll come to us. And if there's a detailed question, or you want to hop on a call to understand something in more detail, we can make time for that.
So in the book, you put your condensed knowledge of 10 years real estate investing. You have a team that also added to the book. What motivated you to publish it basically as a free book and not put a business model on it? Let's say like Amazon sell it for $10, $20.
Yeah. It was really just to help avoid major mistakes, and to help people, if they're looking for a group to invest with, for them to get to know us better. And those are it. That's it.
So in principle, everybody who's interested in using your opportunities to invest can download the book and immediately gets a snapshot of your investment principles. And after reading it, they know what you like doing and what you don't like doing, and what risks you take and what you don't.
Yeah, you bet. Exactly. It's going to be the basics of what to watch out for and how to get to know if an investment might be a good investment for you. And there's obviously a bunch more that you could get into, but these 4 points will help massively, help you massively make a decision on if, hey, this is a red flag. This is something to be cautious of. I'm going to go ahead and pass. And that's the other piece that it should be known as an investor, is there will always be another deal coming. It's like a bus. There will be another deal coming always. So when you hear people say, well, you have to get in, this is the last deal, you got to come in right now, be cautious of that. And that's not the truth. The truth is that there will be another deal. And this is just one for you to learn from. And if you like it, let's roll.
Yeah, this is also on equity markets. I think one lesson that sometimes takes time to understand that the 10x opportunity is not the last one. There will be more opportunities. And the most important thing is investing your capital in companies that still exist in 5 years, regardless of the return, and not throw the money in a sales story where someone says, this is the last deal and you must buy now, but because tomorrow it's gone and you can't get such a good deal anymore. I think burning money is the biggest risk on capital markets. As I looked at the time, we have 10 minutes left on this call, and I would like to use the last 10 minutes to look into the crystal ball, because it's just fun. It's just guesswork, how the future might look like. And my question to you is, when you imagine you in 10 years, where do you see yourself professionally and in your private life?
Yeah, professionally, in 10 years, I see myself still running this company, and my children, my 10-year-old will then be 20, and I hope that it would be something he would want to do with me. I just enjoy hanging out with him, and my other one who's younger, who knows, he's a little young yet, but something that we could do together, and he could eventually take over the company if that's something he's interested in doing and really wants to do. But just running the company and working on building our team. I would hope by that time we're doing much more philanthropy work, and I would love to be able to drill some wells in Africa and bring water to more areas where folks don't have access to it. And so that's something that's further out for me that I would love to be able to participate in. Personal life, I see being married to my wife still, and we just had our 15-year wedding anniversary last week.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And just spending a lot of time with family and friends, and having the freedom to be able to choose to do that. That's my ideal scenario in 10 years.
That's great. Let's spend a few minutes on your philanthropy projects. Can you give us more insight into how it looks like today?
Yeah. So currently the way we're set up is whatever Granite Towers makes, 5% of our bottom line goes to one of two organizations. One organization right now is to help feed kids in Minnesota so if kids are in school Monday through Friday and they go home on the weekends, they're assisted with bag lunches. So it's called the Sheridan Story, and that has been something we've been a part of for the last 5 years or so. And then we also do a portion of that to Underground Railroad, which is a program that helps stop child sex trafficking, something that we were led on to by Tony Robbins, and Mike and I, both having kids, felt very passionate about that. So that's what we do currently, and it's great. I love it. Love being a part of it.
Yeah, two great projects, and I think the last one is very important. We also had a case here in Europe recently, and this is awful. This is terrible that such things happen in the world.
Yes, it happens, and probably is happening more than we'd like to know about or think about, but someone has to take care of it and fight back. Otherwise, it's going to be painful. And so they're great. They're a great company, and glad to be working with them.
So basically, everybody who invests in your projects also supports your causes automatically.
That's correct. You got it.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
We talked about your professional future, your personal future. Let's look at the macro level. How do you see the world change in the coming 10 years from your perspective?
Yeah, I think these next 10 years may be the most challenging 10 years I've seen in my lifetime, I think is likely. And I only say that just due to the destruction of currency taking place and the possibility of countries not getting along as we're going later into these debt cycles. I also see it being possible that the US has more internal conflict. I'm seeing it. I think everyone's seeing it, that you've got further right and further left that are wanting to battle. And another thing that Dalio talks about is late stage 5, stage 6 of the debt cycle is that you have internal civil war. And I hope we don't see that. I hope that people realize that that will cause massive destruction and set everyone back further, and we can, work together harmoniously in that and create a beautiful future. But I do believe, unfortunately, that if things don't change and they continue to trend like they are, these next 10 years could be the most challenging decade we've seen in my lifetime, which will be coming up on 40 years here.
I couldn't agree more. I think this is the biggest challenge for us, to convince people that global collaboration and peace is the best way forward. I grew up in the 70s and 80s here in Europe and experienced the world before 1989 and after that. And the 90s were a decade of hope, of growing collaboration, of change in bureaucracy. Borders went down in Europe, people united. Also, Ray Dalio, you mentioned, trade was taken up with China, with Southeast Asia. And I think all of this, that the United States, Europe, Southeast Asia, Africa, South America, that all nations started collaborating, is the foundation of 30 years of mostly peace and prosperity in the world. And I think this will be the challenge for the next 10 years, to convince people that we should continue on that path and not go down the other route, which would probably mean not only a civil war in the United States, but I see also scenarios where we could have another world war, for example, which evolves out of the crisis we have right now in Europe.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say if I could give one piece of advice, I would say what I would tell my kids, and I tell it to everybody else, is if you have a bunch of currency, find a way to get on the side of owning something real. Maybe it's some gold and silver, maybe it's real estate, maybe it's a crypto, maybe it's Bitcoin, but just have something, as the governments continue to print and create more currency, the value of it and the purchasing power will go down. And get to things that are real, own things that are real. We planted apple trees in a garden in the last few years because of what may come, and that doesn't mean you're going to change the world with our little apple tree orchard and garden, but at least there's something, and it's something fun for us to do too. So it wasn't just, for that was really more my reason. My wife just loves to do it. And maybe get another source of power lined up if you can, like we put solar power on our roof, is just kind of a backup source, and just do some of those things, and hopefully it's never needed, but and it's fun and adds value to your day-to-day life.
Dan, this is sound advice. It's the end of the podcast. Thank you very much for your time. I enjoyed the conversation. I learned a lot of new things from you. I love what you do. I wish you all the best for you, your family, your kids, your wife, your apple trees, and all the best with your investment project.
Thank you, Christian. A pleasure being on. Thanks for having me.
Have a great day. See you soon. Bye.